Alright, so these are our floor plans, and in this video we're going to take a look at quickly getting this modeled, and you can grab the resources if you want to follow along. And before we do anything, notice we have the potential to accidentally move these floor plans around. So we can right click and free selected, and then notice we can't actually select our floor plans anymore. So let's go to the create tab, and we're going to create a box, and we're just going to click and drag, and we've created our first wall. But the thing is, we actually want to be snapping to our floor plans. So let's delete this box and turn on snaps. And you can do this by pressing S, or you can go up here and click on the snaps toggle. And if you right click on it, notice that I only have vertex selected, and that means that our box will only snap to vertexes. And if we go over to options, we have snap to frozen on. This is what we want to be using. And we've got enable constraints on. So set up your snaps like this. And then when we click and drag, you can see we are snapping to our floor plans. Now there is another way you can do this, and that would be to select the floor plans and add an extrude modifier. But I found this sometimes reduces issues with the mesh, and I prefer to model it myself so I know that we have a clean mesh. So let's change the height to 250 centimeters, as that's the height we want our walls. And we'll go to the modifier tab and add an edit poly. And I'm going to go to polygon select and select this polygon. And now we can hold shift, and this means we're using smart extrude, and we can just click and drag and snap this to our floor plans. And if you remember the old way of doing this, using extrude from down here, this would take some time, so this is much quicker. In the perspective view, we can press F4 to turn on wireframes and select that inside face, click and drag, and we're just going to go around all of the walls and use smart extrude to create these. And a great thing about smart extrude is when we meet another part of the wall, that's actually going to cleanly connect these wall edges. So we can turn off polygon mode, and there we have our walls. CAS Cosmos is an asset library that is available since Corona 8. And in here we have thousands of 3D assets that we can use. So in the search, I'm going to just search for Windows. And we're going to use these windows. So we can just click this blue button to download the asset. And I'm also going to download these for our doors. And then the green button means we can import them. And now we want to rotate them. So if I select our doors and rotate, you can see it's not actually snapping. So let's undo that, and we can go up here and turn on angle snaps, or you can press A. And now notice that we can rotate to 90 degrees. So over in the top view, let's move these into position. And if you're ever clicking and dragging and you're struggling, you can press S to turn off the snaps to line these up. And I'm going to hold shift and drag these down to make another copy. And we're going to make this an instance, and that means any of the changes we make to one of the doors will happen to the other. And then we can select our walls again, and we want to select the face underneath our doors. And then in the left view, make sure snaps is on by pressing F, and holding shift, we can snap that to the top of our doors. And you can see back in perspective, that's made easy work of lining our doors up. And now let's create some floors. So I'm going to turn off our polygon select tool, go to the create tab and select box, and in the top view, we can click and drag, and that's going to snap to our walls. And then rather than pulling it up, I'm actually going to pull it down, and let's change the height to -10 centimeters. And then for the roof, let's go to the left view, and holding shift, I'm clicking and dragging, and let's snap that to the top of our walls. This time we'll make it a copy. And in the modifier tab, let's change that from -10 to just 10 centimeters. So now we've got our roof. So let's select our windows that we wanted to put in our roof. And let's rotate these by 90 degrees. And also 90 degrees this way. So we can move these in position using the snaps, but notice that we can't snap the top corner. So we're going to go to a hierarchy effect pivot. And if we zoom in, we can snap this to the top right of our windows, turn off effect pivot, and this will now snap to our floor plans. And then in the left view, let's pull this up into position. And I want to leave a slight overhang here as well. All right, so now let's make a hole in our ceiling. So I'm going to select our ceiling, and back in the modifier tab, we'll add an edit poly. We'll select edges, and I'll just click and drag, select those, and then we want to connect them. So rather than hitting connect there, we'd only be able to create one connection. So if we click on the settings, let's make that 2, hit OK, select our verts, and then we're just going to snap those to the edges of our windows. And let's do the same again, but the other direction. And this time, notice if I hit connect, it remembers the settings from last time. So we can select the verts and push them over. Let's just make sure they're lined up okay. I think we can actually pull these up here. All right, looking good. And then we can just select that top face of our ceiling, holding shift for smart extrude, we can just pull it through and release, and that has created our gap for our windows in the ceiling. All right, next up, let's find some lights from Cosmos. So I'm going to search for ceiling lamp, and let's use these ones. I've already got them downloaded, but you may just need to click in the top right and download them, and let's import them. And in the left view, let's get them positioned. So I don't want them all the way up here, I want them to slightly overhang. So I'm going to turn off snaps by pressing S and just have them overhang a little bit. And then in the top view, we do actually want these to snap. So again, we'll go to hierarchy, effect pivot, press S to turn on snaps, and we'll snap that to the top left. And then we should be able to easily snap these into position. Holding shift, we can make an instance, as I don't think the lights will be changing too much. And I'm actually going to create 3 copies of that. And then holding shift, I'll pull this one down, make that an instance. And same again over here. Great, so we've got some lights in our scene. And much like we did with the ceiling windows, we want a place for our lights to go. So selecting our ceiling, let's go back, and with edit poly selected, we can start connecting some of these edges. And I'm going to snap them to our lights. And if you ever got a selection and need to select more, you can hold Control, and that will select the others. Now if we right click and hide unselected, you can notice we've only now got our ceiling selected. So we want to go and just select where our lights are. We can turn off snaps as well to make this a little easier. And I'm holding Control to keep our current selection and select some more lights. And I think I've missed that middle one actually, so let's unhide all. Oh, I missed two of them. Let's connect 4 times. And we can zoom in and snap these into position. Great. We'll go back to polygon, hide unselected, and lucky for us it keeps that last selection as well, so we can just hold Control and we've selected all of our lights. So now over in the left view, I'm going to turn off snaps, and holding Shift I'm just going to pull these up a little bit. I mean, if we unhide all, we can see the tops of our lights and just make sure they're coming through. I'm not actually holding Shift now. I only hold Shift for the initial Smart Extrude. And if we turn off polygons, we can see we now have our model. And just quickly before we go, another way that we can add the loops, especially for these lights, for example, is to use something called Swift Loops. So with the ceiling selected, we can select Edge and then press Alt-1 on the keyboard, and you can see we can now create loops. And this is really handy. And then if you want to move these, make sure you've got snaps on, and you can start snapping these, for example, to your lights. And if you want to select a loop, you can just double click it and it's going to loop select. So that's also a quick way to do what we just did with the lights. I'm just going to undo all of this. So whichever way you choose which one's fastest. I find connection quicker, but that might just be because I was using Macs before Swift Loops existed. But do try Swift Loops, and if it works quicker for you, then you can do it that way. All right, next up, we're going to want to add some cameras, and there's 2 ways we can do this. If we're in our perspective view and we want to zoom in and position our camera somewhere, we can go to create Corona camera from view, and if we click that, notice in the top view we've created a camera. But as soon as we have a camera in mind, we can delete that and we can actually go to create Corona camera, and then in the top view I'm just going to click and drag and position our camera like this. Then over in the left view, notice that our camera's on the ground, so I'm just going to right click, move camera, and if we move that up, notice that we actually have a camera target, so we can undo that, and we're going to want to select this camera target as well, so we'll hold Control and select that, and now we can move this up into position. And I like to keep my cameras somewhere between chest and head height, as I just feel that's a more natural view, something like the photographer is going to do, and I think we're just more used to seeing images like that. So we go back to perspective view and press C on the keyboard. Notice that we're actually just looking at a wall, and that's because our camera's behind this wall. So something we can do in a situation like this is select our camera, go to the modifier tab, and if you scroll down in here, you'll see environment and clipping. So we can enable that, and we can turn up this near. If you're ever turning up a dialog box and it's going really slow, you can actually hold Control and it's going to speed things up. And you can see this line here, and this is, let's say we put 1 meter in here. This is 1 meter from the camera, and then notice that we can actually see through this wall. So anything between here and here is actually going to be clipped. So this is really useful if say you're in a very small bathroom or you're trying to get an angle. This can be a really useful thing to use. But in our case, we've got plenty of room, so we don't actually need to use that. So I'm just going to bring our camera into our room. We kind of want to keep things as real to life as possible. And you'd kind of expect the photographer to be standing here if they were photographer if they were photographed, if they were taking photos of this room. And we can also go up to our field of view and we can turn that up, and notice if I pull that up, you can see more of the room. It can be tempting to do something like this, but really try and keep it as realistic as possible. I think when these wider views, they start looking a little bit unrealistic. So I'm going to put saying like 55 in here. And then using the middle mouse button, you can start panning around and just position your camera how you like it. We can change this later, so it's not set in stone, but that's how you can set up your camera.